What does it cost to extract a barrel of oil in the Middle East? Maybe $9 a barrel or something, and the rest is just profit. It's still the cheapest. I mean, Alaskan is, way over these sort of levels. So that if you can control Middle East oil and cut off China from it, that is going to weaken China and weaken Russia indirectly. Mm-hmm. Russia has plenty of oil, of course, but China is now linked and dependent on Russia. And so, removing Iran and its oil or taking it back into American controllership then weakens China and weakens Russia. So that's part, I think, of the geopolitical game very much to one of the motives for Iran, or war in Iran, is to deprive China of a secure form of control. Of course, that was before, they signed Siberia too, at the, in Geneva, SCO conference. Although that will take some years to come to completion, 2030, I think. But I think, so again, oil as a sort of form of leverage. Oil and part of an escalatory process. I mean, you can cut off someone's, or you can allow. Look at the way they pay Iraq. Yeah. Iraq still has all its money frozen in New York, but they're only allowed to get oil if America says so. So now America just suddenly said, well, you can't get Kurdish oil, I think it is at the moment. We won't permit it to come via Iran. So that's the sort of other part of the dominance.
Well, let me ask you this. To what extent is the West reacting to the fact, with the realization that BRICS and this new economic order that is emerging with China and Russia in the lead, or is the West still sort of oblivious to that and dismissing it as irrelevant?
That's still the sort of public line, but no, they are. They're very, very frightened now, and they're very frightened by what they saw. I mean, they were shocked by the parade at Tiananmen Square. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Chinese military parade, which was so immaculate and so impressive, yes, and had real, heft behind it, real weapons, new ones, that the West had never seen before. That shocked them, and they pretend they don't notice. What I keep referring to is that the slow, quiet Chinese rollout of the new monetary fast track for the rest of the world. China's made some substantial shift with that process, the superhighway, the super digital highway, as I call it, of that kind, internationalizing the yuan, tying it to gold, creating now these offshoots of the Shanghai Metal Exchange in Hong Kong, which is outside of the Chinese, capital control system.
Let me just interject that I did one of the AI searches I did. I asked, hey, what's happened to SWIFT transactions? And it came back and it said, basically, for the first time in the history of SWIFT transactions are down 15% this year, which I think goes back to underscore what you're saying.
Yes. And that's on chips. And, I think it was in October, it was April, for the first time there was a greater transfer of foreign exchange on the chips Chinese system than there was in dollars on SWIFT.
Yeah, cross-border interbank payment system, CIPS. Yeah.
But this other system is much more important because what you're dealing with is something, again, it's quietly happening. In that, what they've done is, there used to be a thing called Enbridge. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it was.
I saw. Actually, you did an excellent presentation on it yesterday in an interview that you did. I forget the lady's name.
Okay. Yeah.
Encourage people to watch that.
So yes. So that, these things are all quietly, and then no big sort of news, and then Lavrov says, actually, we're going to open this technology freely to the rest of the road and belt. 90% of the world is now, it's not going to be licensed and rent taken off it in the Western way. It's going to be free.
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah.
And so we don't use it. So all of these things are quietly going on. And I have a theory of why and then they're not hardly noticed. And I was just saying to someone on a little bit earlier, on the thing well, Trump has announced that, he's going to encourage the World Bank to give more loans, for oil and gas exploration, which ain't going back to where things were. And I say, well, I'm sure that's got everything to do with the fact that the Chinese have now announced publicly that they're opening removing finance, panda bonds for oil and gas exploration by Russian companies. So Russian companies are raising their finance in panda bonds, remember they're nominated bonds, but which are linked to gold through the SME. So all of that is, I'm sure, linked. So the oil gas rivalry that you mentioned in first, what's it all about? I think now Trump is getting worried that the Chinese are going to take quite a lot of this. And, the most significant thing is this, the first place that they're going to open for this, these gold warrants and this gold exchange is going to be Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And in other places. So, all of this is going on, and at the same time, but low key, I think that the Chinese do not want to disrupt the financial system. They want to see it quietly disappear. They're not above helping it on its way out, but they're not going to try and do it, and they don't want to do it from space. I think this is managing the psychology is very important. Managing the American psyche.
I think when historians look back on this period, they'll look and say, number one, the effort of the West to destroy Russia using Ukraine as a lever, that exposed the military weakness of the West, and particularly the United States, the lack of strategic depth that was further revealed by the victory of the Houthis over the United States. So the questions about the military power. Then the second element is the emergence of this alternative financial monetary system and trade system that is now was compelled to, in part because of the Western attempt to punish Russia and China economically. And then the third thing that they'll talk about, and you've written about this extensively, you and Aisling, your wife, at Conflicts Forum, that this attack in Doha, it just in and of itself has, I think, become sort of a watershed moment that finally the rest of these Gulf Arabs woke up and go, well, wait a second. The United States, we can't trust the bastards. Could you comment on that?
Yes, because, and to rub it in, Netanyahu said very clearly, he didn't apologize. He said, we'll do it again.
Yeah.
And we'll do it if necessary with Turkey. And there was not a criticism by Rubio when he was there, certainly not in public. And it was quite clearly I think you can interpret it in different ways, but I think the message was basically saying was making it actually explicit. This is the old Israeli what it was called the boss has gone crazy.
Yeah.
Be careful. Watch out. He's on the run. Best to keep out of his way and hide. And I think it was a warning to all of the Middle East, don't take anything for granted. We will come out, we will ignore boundaries, we will do anything to impose what we want. And the American ambassador Barak, who was his actually title is he's ambassador in Turkey, but he's also ambassador in Syria and Lebanon. And Barak said, listen, there's the new policy, the policy of Israel is dominance and subjugation. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be, you have no choice. You just will be subjugated. Said this explicitly. So, this was part of the messaging, I think, to Qatar and saying, we're not going to treat you as special anymore. You're either subjugated or an opponent in which we'll come and bomb you. And this is the new, if you like, Zionism that has transpired in Israel over this period. And it's, it is very, very much radical change that is taking place. In a way, it's not so radical in that it was always there in 48.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same element because it was the Mizrahi who were the main sort of components that have been brought in by being into for the Irgun and those other groups who conducted the 48 sites. But now it has become mainstream and is largely supported by many Israelis. So that it's moved to, what the Israelis themselves call barbarism, Zionism. Extreme Zionism of Amalek and a different, and the point is it's a completely, that's underlining very clearly the difference. It's a different military approach, but it's also a different ethical approach. They openly taunt Christians as practicing moral relativism. Sort of saying, to comment about, Jesus and nonviolence is moral relativism. That is not justice. Real justice is absolute justice. You just hate and destroy your enemies.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, I want to make very clear, I'm not saying that Judaism was all that side of it, because of course that was an element at the time of Jesus when he was, there was this element of the sort of the tolerance of it. But now we are at the other end of the spectrum. And it causes huge heart searching and resistance amongst the segments of Israel and division, deep division. But it's more than that because it's become so brutalizing. The new politics, as I say, it's sort of stick your finger into every sore that a person has and run deeper. And so this brutalizing is, is practiced against now the families of those who have hostages taken and still are held in Gaza. So, before they were sort of special people and put on pedestals and, and much admired. Now they get spat at and they get cursed and called traitors and they're attacked brutally by the police as if they were Palestinians. So the society, the glue that brought the society together is gone because of this sort of extreme polarizing politics of, any sort of division, worsen it, make it more redder, more bloody, more painful, and use that politically. And then also the resort to, if you like, parts of the Old Testament, which were also very violent.
Yeah. Well, we're living through this epic of tremendous change. This is, some call it like the fourth turning, but, I think we're entering into what will later be recognized as sort of a new phase, an end of one era of epic of history and the start of